All right, well, thank you everyone for joining in. Appreciate your time. We are just a few minutes off, but we are starting with our first session. And as part of that, here are the agenda that we're looking at. We got, a keynote address coming from Aditya at 3:35. We will have that for about 10 minutes. And after that, we'll move to the webinar at 3:45. We'll take about 2 questions at the end of that. And once that is done, the second half will be our panel conversation, which will take at 4:15. The idea is to run about 20, 25 minutes. And then we'll leave some more time at the end for question and answers. With that, I will now hand it over to Aditya. Aditya is ex-Accenture. He is the digital transformation leader and an emerging technologies expert. Aditya, with that, over to you. I will manage your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Vikas. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Aditya Deoskar, and the topic I'm going to basically cover is the key trends and challenges in the financial world. I'd like to thank botminds.ai and Imprint Media, who've given me this opportunity to talk on this topic. So, Vikas, if you move on to the next one. Right. So in this current day and era, there's a huge shift in the financial world in that sense, right? I mean, products have actually become kind of commodity, right? I mean, the 4 Ps which we had learned, in the MBA days, they're not there anymore, right? I mean, they have become commodities. If you look at the banking products, you look at the insurance products, you pretty much find, there's no differentiation per se in that. I mean, the pricing is the same, the product lineup is the same, the way they're selling to the customers is pretty much the same. The only biggest differentiating factor in today's day and era is the customer experience. And when I say customer experience, it's customer experience and the digital experience. So that's become the key differentiating factor for to sell anything in this day and era. And if you look at some statistics, right? I mean, 50% of the workforce in 2020 were the millennials, right? Millennials are guys who've been born with the phone in their hand, literally, right? And this number is going to be 75% in 2025. It's a huge shift in terms of the demographics in that sense, right? I mean, and the banks, the financial institutions really need to focus on these things, and they need to focus on the customer experience and digital experience. And if they don't do that, they're going to be left behind, way behind, right? The second big thing which is coming out is that this is the era of mass personalization. I spoke about 4 Ps. And during that time we used to be taught about target market segment. So there is this segment where they have a behavioral pattern, they have a spending pattern, they have a purchasing power. So those were the segments we talk about during that time. That is probably 3, 4 years, 5 years back. And that's completely changed. It's all about that individual person, okay? Especially with the millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z, it's all about data. You pick up your phone, you go through internet, you go through any app, you are leaving a trail of data. And what companies are basically doing is, they're using, data science, data analytics, big data to chunk up all this information which you're leaving behind with a layer of AI ML. And what they're doing is personalizing that to you. They're saying that risk appetite of Aditya Deoskar is at this level, purchasing power of Aditya Deoskar is this level. He's going to make a decision of purchasing an insurance product within this particular time. And his risk appetite for that particular product is this much. And with that data, you can go out to customers, personalize it to their particular need with the data they're giving us, and that's going to be the name of the game. And today's if you look at today's generation, okay, they don't have time to sit and do anything. They just want everything on the fingertips, and they're spoiled for choices, right? I mean, if you look at one segment of insurance, there'll be 1,000 products, right? And you need to distinguish yourself or differentiate yourself within that kind of space at this moment. So, it's very important that you have amazing customer experience, invest in data for mass personalization, and focus on the kind of demographics you're basically tackling. So if you move on to the next one, because the other paradigm shift is I see is going to be fintechs, right? I mean, so if there's a slide, and it's a little dated in that sense, and there's a purpose which I've kept it there. There's some numbers on it. Okay, so this graph is from 2018, and what it basically says is that the global fintech market is going to be about 45 billion US dollars in 2020. Any guesses on that number? It is triple that number right now. It is $125 billion. It's grown substantially. They had made some prediction. It's surpassed that prediction. They're saying 2025, it's going to be about close to about $370 billion, and the number could be way more. And how the fintechs really made the difference, right? I mean, they have taken a segment and they have really changed the whole customer experience around it, right? I mean, so I'll give you an example, right? I opened my Zerodha trading account 2 months back, couple of months back, right? It took me exactly 10 minutes to open the account. I had the Aadhaar ready with me, with the Aadhaar OT verification, with my KYC and everything. It just took me 10 minutes. And I go back to my experience when I opened my HDFC Demat account and my trading account. It took me exactly 3 days. I remember, carrying my Aadhaar, PAN card, taking Xerox copies of it, filling up forms after forms, signing in on it. So what the point I'm trying to drive is that, there's a complete shift in terms of the customer experience. What we see from these fintechs. You look at Zerodha, you look at Paytm, you look at PhonePe. The ease of making payments is phenomenal. And if the banks, the financial institutions don't catch up with that kind of experience, it's going to be game over kind of a thing, right? And the other thing which fintechs are doing very, very well is they are targeting the segments, which are profitable in nature. So banks and financial institutions, the biggest profits they make are from payments, or from the insurance products, or from the trading products and stuff like that. And fintechs are specializing. So they are laser focused on that segment. They give a supreme product. They have a supreme customer experience, and they capture the market, right? And if they keep going at it like that, the bank's margins, the bank's profitability is going to take a severe hit. So banks need to realize this immediately. They need to come up. They need to significantly change the business model, how they're doing the current businesses, especially in these segments of payments, insurance, and others, where fintechs are targeting them, and completely change the business model towards the customer and customer experience, right? And if they're not able to do that, they need to buy these fintechs or merge with them, through APIs or whatever. But that's something which is going to be a big game changer for banks and for the financial institutions. Because if you want to move on to the next one. Thank you. So cloud, right? Cloud is a no-brainer, right? I mean, everybody wants to get into cloud. Everybody wants to do cloud, and it's the right thing to do, right? I mean, if it saves money and stuff like that. But from a banks, from a financial institution, there's another another paradigm to it, right? I mean, banks are really scared. They're scared about their data. If there's going to be a data breach in this. They're scared about the regulatory and compliances the government's put around these banks and stuff like that, and the legacy IT system. And let me give you, so if there is a data breach within the banks, that could cost banks billions and billions of dollars. We have seen some of the Western banks have actually paid millions or billions of dollars, right? Because they had regulatory breach or compliance breach. You have examples of HSBC, you have examples of Bank of America, where you had to pay billions of dollars because of money laundering and regulatory breaches and stuff like that, right? And there's some number around it. So for every data breach, it costs the bank about $145 to $154 for a compromised account. If the account runs into hundreds of thousands, you can imagine the impact on the bank. So banks are kind of scared from that standpoint. Breach of data, regulatory compliance, the government's becoming stronger and stronger with the regulatory needs and the compliance needs, and the legacy IT system, right? But cloud is the way to go, right? I mean, if you want to make a unified platform, you want to have a unified strategy to go to the market, to target the market, so the cloud is the way to move ahead, right? And I'll give you one more statistic, right? So when in 2020 they did this analysis of some major banks and financial institutions, what they basically figured out is that 65 to 70 or almost 75% of the IT spend goes to run the bank, right? And there's hardly left to change the bank. And if the banks start looking at cloud seriously, okay, because of the benefit it gets from moving from a capex model to OPEX model, you will save money from that standpoint, and you will be able to invest that savings into change the bank. So it's very important for banks and financial to look at it seriously, because that's going to give them a huge cost saving. Okay, and the other thing it's going to give them is it's going to give them time to do other things rather than maintaining the servers and expensive things and stuff like that. And the other thing is you pay of what you use. It's scalable, right? I mean, if you're using X amount of cloud space, you pay for that. And if you're actually scaling down, you pay less for that. So those are very, very important. The other thing which I'm coming, in terms of control of data, regulatory and compliance, right? Cloud brings variety of functions, right? There is hybrid, there's multi-cloud. So hybrid is basically, I'm saying that there is data which is this is private data. It can't go out anywhere. There could be a high breach possibility of this data. I put that data into a private cloud, right? I mean, the bank controls that in the cloud, but which is private to the bank or the financial institutions. But rest of the stuff can be on public, right? You have a multi-cloud strategy. You can say that, I want my enterprise software can be on AWS, but I want to do my containerized microservices on the Google, the container platform run on Kubernetes, right? So those are some of the things which we can do. I mean, and bank have got all these options in front of them. And cloud and this day and era brings so many other functions, right? I mean, you have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. You can use any of these. I think the most important right now, and Google Cloud Platform has brought this, is the data and the power of data analytics, right? The banks and the financial institutions don't have to invest significant amount of money on these, data science, data analytics, or big data programs, because all that is being provided on cloud right now. And they can use cloud to go through zillions of data, structured, unstructured data, to make right decisions for this. You have Vision AI, which can help you with your AI things. You have TensorFlow, which helps you with NLP. So there is a world of things the benefits which cloud gets. And then all these issues around cloud, the control of data, regulatory compliance, legacy IT system and stuff like that can be actually controlled when you move quickly into cloud. So if you move on, I'm running out of time, but I'll try and cover as much as possible. Cybersecurity, again, absolutely no brainer. As and when we come on to new technologies, this is going to become really, really critical, right? I mean, we talked about data breaches, privacy, regulation, stuff like that. So this becomes more and more important. I'll give you a quick example, right? We are coming into the era of 5G. Right? I mean, 5G is making space. And they're saying that, once 5G comes in, the machines are going to talk to each other, right? I mean, machines enabled with IoT devices will start talking to each other, and there'll be no human intervention, right? I mean, that's going to open an era of different computing altogether. When machines start talking to each other, it's going to be a different ballgame, and 5G is going to help with that. And that will bring in this huge issue about cybersecurity, right? I mean, if a hacker wants to do some malicious activity, he gets a malicious IoT device and gets into your database, and tries to get as much data as possible, out of it, or breach your data and stuff like that. So, when machines start talking to each other, IoT takes a significant, uptick when 5G comes into picture. It's going to be a different ballgame, right? And then banks and financial institutions really, really need to be on top of the game in terms of cybersecurity. And if you move on to the next one, blockchain. This is my favorite topic, right? And talking about security, I think this technology at this stage, this technology is what internet was, probably 25 years ago, right? I mean, that time, internet was there to just check your mail and stuff like that. Now you cannot do anything without the internet. And I'm telling you, the financial institutions in the next 2 to 5 years would not be able to work without blockchain. And I'll give you some examples, and I'll talk about the core concepts of blockchain, right? immutability of data. The way the data is stored currently in the blockchain with the hashing function, it's immutable, right? Once the block is formed, you use tremendous amount of power. I'm just talking about blockchain. I'm not talking about hyperledger and stuff like that, but I'm just talking about the concept of blockchain. Once you put the data in a block, right? I mean, you use your cryptographic hash function, stuff like that. It's immutable. It's next to impossible to break that. The other big thing which has come through blockchain technology is the peer-to-peer ecosystem, right? I mean, you have nodes, which are basically your computers. They actually monitor the entire ecosystem. And what they do is they ensure that no malicious activity is happening in the ecosystem. That is number one. And the number two part is that there is the control of the central authority, okay, over the ecosystems, over the financial world goes away significantly or just disappears completely, right? And then you don't have to pay a fee or rent to that central authority. I'll give you an example. Okay, Ripple is a company which is based on DLT, which is distributed ledger technology based on blockchain, and they do cross-border payments and cross-border transfer of money. Swift is the currently the biggest financial institution which does the cross-border payments or transfer of money and stuff like that. And they take anywhere between 2 to 3 days to do the transfer. And any of these companies charge anywhere between 5 to 10% transaction fee on the overall thing. Ripple does that transaction across cross-border payments across countries and stuff like that in less than 3 seconds. And they charge 0.001, just a fraction of that charge. Why would you not move into this ecosystem, okay, when you have so many benefits, and there are so many use cases which are coming out. There are use cases which are coming out of KYC, AML. Banks actually spend almost 10 to 15% doing KYC, AML on customers. They're coming on different products, and blockchain can just make that in a fraction of a cost. They start putting the system. So this is going to catch up very, very soon. And the other big thing which is happening in blockchain is smart contracts. I mean, smart contracts is a code which is written and between parties. And once the parties suffice, what they have agreed to in the smart contract, the transaction goes through, right? It's going to make a huge impact in the investment world, right? I mean, you'll see smart contracts not in the investment world. They're also smart contracts between IoT devices, which there are some use cases from that. And blockchain systems are way cheaper than the current systems, right? And so, I think financial institutions and banking, they're actually sitting on the side and looking at this technology, but they need to invest today because this is going to make a huge difference. Because if you move on to the next one, I know you're going to talk a bit about this, but AI has really come to a level. You look at. So I was working with this company, and we were deploying chatbots. 70 to 80% of the chats or the voice calls we were able to handle within the chatbots and the voice bots. So that's the kind of cost savings we can do with these AI and robotics. And I've gone with the days where we used to look at macros and stuff like that, basic kind of thing. Now we do hyper automation, so end-to-end automation, right? But there are some challenges. There you can't do 100% automation, right? So and it's a continuous learning kind of a thing. That's very, very important. It's very important to process standardization. So when I was working with this company, they had different processes in Europe, in Asia. And what we basically told them is that, first you standardize your product. And that's where you see the bang for the buck when you automate it across regions. So that's very important. So process standardization first and then automation. And the last point is that, you need to actually, how you operate pre-automation, how you operate post-automation is very, very important. What is your target operating model after you do your automation is what you need to really think of, right? I mean, that's going to give you the bang for the buck. That's going to give you the real value from an automation standpoint. Thank you, Vikas.
All right, continuing with this. So thanks, Aditya, for your point of view. It is good to at least get a different side where we're looking at the entire value chain in terms of the various technologies that are coming together to essentially bring about the real change when it comes down to financial services and finance overall. And I think it's a complete technology landscape that is changing there. The key pieces that you mentioned are in terms of cloud, in terms of the the point that everybody's almost on the cloud. You've got the 5G, you got the blockchain. I think blockchain is definitely here to stay. There's no question about that. And lastly, in terms of the automation. So my effort here today is to bring about the fact that what are the things that we can do when it comes down to automating document processes, document-related processes. And of course, it goes without saying that the back office essentially is already gone through a large transformation change through all the RPA processes which have been there so far. And with those things changed and brought in the benefit of the overall automation to the back office organization, whether financial services or non-financial services. The next frontier, of course, is where RPA headed towards, was handling non-standard inputs to getting, to be able to bring things inside for processing. And that's where the key piece of I like to call it as a final frontier when it comes down to automation to a large extent. Of course, that's the visibility that we have so far. And as part of that is there are a lot of pieces, there are a lot of processes which are there in the financial services, which are very heavily dependent upon SMEs, which are very heavily dependent upon people. And the reason for that is because they all deal with unstructured data. They all deal with data that is coming in, it's non-standard. Example of that really are various types of researches. You've got covenant research, equity market research, credit research, you've got valuation, company comparable analysis, you've got risk compliance, which is underwriting, data analytics, you've got company profile and actions, and advisory, which is investment advisory and M&A advisory. Now, all of these pieces, there's a large piece of our organization, which is back offices, GICs, GCC of various levels, essentially are dealing with all of this data. And this is what we are specifically talking about here. There's sometimes a confusion between F&A and financial services. Of course, those are important things, but we are basically focused on these areas on the financial services in our conversation today. So when you look at all these financial services processes, the variety of documents that come in are things like regulatory filing, annual reports, analyst reports, news articles, core transcripts. And what is really common across all of this is, one, they are unstructured documents. They don't come into any standard template or a format. They don't come in as regular input that says, here is the field information, here is the value. It essentially is a call transcript. It's a conversation that we are having now. It gets recorded, gets transcribed, and it's a completely open conversation. Now, the challenge with that really is that RPA cannot process unstructured data. That's basically the challenge there. And of course, RPA kind of understood 2-3 years ago, and that's where the development towards CPA, IPA, hyperautomation, all those things, various names which are there, started from that point. But IPA, of course, is a general term for multiple things. You got RPA plus AI is roughly translated, IPA. But to be able to handle these documents as an input and still be able to generate the output, it needs significant amount of AI modeling, significant amount of variety of tools and structures to be able to get the extraction out of any type of these formats, various companies, various countries, various types of information to be able to pull that out. Now, with that, there comes multiple challenges when you're looking at these things being done manually. So the challenges that you're looking at is you got documents, like I mentioned, that come in from a variety of types. They come in from a variety of sources. They kind of need to be cleaned even before certain human beings, certain SMEs start up with that process can need to be cleaned there. Then most of these things are completely dependent upon people and knowledge. So it needs to be read, it needs to be understood. Basically, you need human grade intelligence there. And all of that currently lies with the SMEs. When it comes down to workflow, you need an end-to-end workflow so that all of the processes from extraction to delivery is basically addressed. Measurement and timeline, this is usually the challenge when it faces in terms of a non-standard processes input or non-standard terms and conditions, which even SMEs have not been trained for, and they either miss out or they pick up the wrong information. So it goes through a QC, QA check for accuracy. And then the biggest piece that comes really is the seasonality and dependence of IT. If you're looking at an IT-based solution, and that is a challenge when you see build or buy versus pick up something that you can mash together as 3 or 4 components versus something that just works together. So the IT dependency is usually a delay when it comes down to business's speed of execution. So when we look at that, we look at it from a perspective of AI first platform. So we look at the fact that if somebody has to solve this document based processes, it needs to be an AI platform that can read and understand documents just the way human beings do. It should be able to capture the knowledge of the SMEs and retain that knowledge within the platform rather than just have certain processes and still the SMEs are sitting around the automation, helping the automation along the way. And last piece is that it should be able to integrate with a variety of important critical systems all the way through at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Now, with all this construct, we look at it from a point of view that speed and intelligence is critical to automation. What currently exists with an RPA is speed, so that's a bot speed. But what is missing in the overall automation is the intelligence that comes from the SME. So a bot speed and mind's intelligence is essentially a combination that you're looking at to be able to have a complete automation, specifically when it comes down to document processes, based workflows. Now, when we look at AI first, we are a no-code automation. We have ready-made modular blocks that you can just stack up on the basis of your requirements, on the basis of your processes. There are pre-trained models which are kind of available, and then we offer end-to-end automation as part of the platform. And as a result of all that, the dependency on IT, apart from that initial setup, kind of changes, and it comes down to business because you don't really need to write any code. And the fact that most of these training and the models, AI models are pre-trained, you're basically looking at getting efficiency and results and accuracy within weeks rather than months and years. So what we have to offer as part of a unified platform, we have kind of fused the IDP components, which is our core capability, built around with that. If you read from left to right to bottom, you're looking at connectors, AI supervision, and the legend here is the blue ones are the IPA components and the yellow ones are the IDP components. So we're looking at ingestion when it comes down the second piece where we're looking at which model needs to load data across multiple pieces. Then you've got a variety of other pieces, which is all the document AI, semantic AI, table AI. So if you're looking at unstructured call transcript analysis, something that we'll look at today as part of the case study, you're basically looking at semantic analysis and document understanding. If you're looking at annual reports, you're basically looking at a combination of all of these. And these things come in variety of types of documents. You got PDF, you got form, data may just be sitting at a web page. It doesn't really matter. All of these pieces get extracted and workflow from an extraction to delivery. So from ingestion to extraction is basically completed with a single unified platform. All right. So let's quickly jump on to a couple of case studies. I've got 2 examples here because I think show and tell is a bit more valuable for all of you here rather than just looking at what I've got on a fancy presentations here. So on the first example, really is call transcript analysis. The call transcript is a 60-minute long, very critical piece of information that is transcribed as part of the the earnings call that an organization has. And of course, it has a variety of information. It's got information about investments, it's got results, it's got key participants, key stakeholders, any partnership, et cetera, et cetera. All that pieces of information is part of the call transcript. And the challenge that we had here when we were working with this organization is that you got all this call transcripts which are available. The current transcription analysis systems essentially can only do semantic analysis, right? They can just try and say, here is the here is the red, here is the green, here is the thing that you should be concerned about, here is the kind of okay. And they just leave it at that. You've got a document which is basically color-coded. You, of course, have information about who joined and who participated, but usually that's where it kind of ends. Our client specifically was looking at extracting more information than just that based on their taxonomy. A taxonomy is fields, attributes, whatever you would want to call the information kind of needs to be extracted there. And at the same time, they wanted this to be done kind of in real-time basis, because otherwise people were anyway sitting down and doing that manually. So what we were able to do for our client is define a one-time setup, custom taxonomy for the transcript to understand what is the information that kind of needs to be extracted. And then we pushed that and did the training to our model, which already has a table understanding, semantic understanding document, all the pieces that you saw in the previous slide. It already has that. And what we did was we took 100 transcripts. We did the training of our AI model, and then going from that point onwards, we were able to generate transcriptions, extraction from the transcriptions, kind of in the real-time basis. The moment the transcript is available, you open that up, and the information is extracted just in a couple of minutes' time. So that's the results that we were able to deliver. Multi-page call transcription done in a couple of minutes. Seasonality, not a problem. And when there was, nothing much to handle, we also, went into the archive and we kind of, enriched the database from the documents there. So I'm going to switch my screen here, and I'll come back and ask Gokul if he can still see it, because I'll be going on to a demo mode now. So we got a couple of transcripts which are kind of loaded. This is our platform. What you see is on the left-hand side, the document gets loaded. On the right-hand side, the value is kind of already extracted. So it's basically done in real time. This is a Walgreens transcription, excuse me. So if you look at it, it's a 22-page, very standard in a way, completely unstructured. The information is, wherever this information needs to be. And these are the pieces of information that we kind of needed to pull out from this document. We're looking at company name, for merger, we're looking at change in quarter, apart from just standard information of just the records and the name. And the way this platform essentially works is, you got the value here, but the moment you click on it, it tells you where the value is extracted from, pretty standard in that way. But it's not just that, it extracts the name of the company as well, and it breaks everything down into multiple records, right? So you got all the pieces of information neatly extracted. And so it may look very simple at the moment, but we look at other pieces of information. Now, this is fine. We have participants, we have extracted that. But there is a cash flow information somewhere in this transcript, which was mentioned that the cash flow increased by 13%. So our AI has kind of picked up where in this document there's a mention about that cash flow, if at all. If there wasn't any, there wouldn't be any information on the right-hand side. And what essentially was the amount. So that reference was kind of picked up. And given the fact that this is a Walgreens, so there's a lot of conversation about COVID-related conversation that is going on. So we kind of picked that up and extracted the whole bunch of information that was there related to COVID and its impacts here. And this thing continues on. They're looking at the impact amount. You're looking at not just that, you're looking at a positive impact and a negative impact. So a determination whether a particular conversation that happened during the transcript is a positive impact, or it's kind of a negative impact for anybody who's kind of reviewing this. And at any given point of time, whether there's a reference to a change in operations, all those small specific pieces which usually could go unnoticed or need human-grade understanding to be able to read this 22-page document and extract those values, can be done right here. And it's not just that, you have the ability to take this information out. You can take this out into a PDF format, into a JSON, CSV, TSV, etc. Or you could just have a downstream API connectivity done from Botminds and all of that, pushes through. I'll show that to you in just another minute. But I'll come back. I've got one more case study that I want to actually share with all. So I'm going to switch my screens again. Okay, so I guess that's available there. All right. So that's a second case study. So what we're looking at in this one is we've got annual reports that are kind of where the information needed to be extracted. And that's a lot of financial services organizations, kind of do that. And it takes a very long time. It takes, them up to 6 to 8 hours to probably a day to look through annual reports. Annual reports change on the basis of the type of industry, if it's, travel sector, airline sector versus finance versus retail, the contents of the annual reports essentially would change. So in this case, the client had roughly to process about 50,000 annual reports on a quarterly basis. multiple regulatory standards, multiple types of languages, not the language, but multiple types of ways in which those standards were written. And of course, you had non-standard tables as well, where the information needed to be. And this is a very typical, interesting example where you've got free flow documents with tables, with detailed tables, and with tables that kind of look like tables, but human beings can obviously pick that up. And some of the information essentially sits as part of the notes and description as well. Same thing, we built a client taxonomy. We had our pre-trained model deployed there. And within the 4 weeks time, we were kind of able to bring in a reduction of about 75% of time. So we were able to bring in from an 8-hour effort down to 2 hours with human in the loop. Of course, the results from our side were kind of real time. And once we had done the first industry, we kind of took that experience and brought it to a second industry as well. And I will show you a demo of that now. All right, so let's look at this example. This is an annual report, that we've kind of loaded up. This is an organization called Tech 2019 annual report. It's a 142-page document, and specifically for this demo, we kind of configured about 4 or 5 different values that needed to be picked up. So we're looking at net income, same way. It goes to the specific place to extract the value. Now, this is where it becomes tricky, and table understanding is literally one of the biggest challenges that AI and AI organizations are currently facing. AI platforms are currently trying to solve, whether it's Google, Amazon, or all the way to the other spectrum here. To be able to understand, the column 2019 is written where, and where is the value of profit and loss. And this is, you would see that it's written as net income. So we're not doing a find net income and show the value. It's literally a semantic level understanding of what that value is. You got net sales, which is revenue. You got current assets. And this is an interesting one. The current assets it's not picked up that, hey, there's no value written against current assets. Our AI has determined that the current asset essentially is a summation of all of these pieces. And this 4,495 is actually the correct value. Same goes with the current liability as well. Let me take another example here, a different annual report completely. This is another organization, Magna International. We're looking at the same thing, net income, etc. I will quickly bring to the other piece, which is the employee headcount. And as you would see that this literally is sitting somewhere else, page number 3, somewhere it has been mentioned, and our AI basically has extracted that, okay, 165,000 essentially is the actual headcount for the employees. Now, from here, you could extract the value. I'm going to do a table extraction as an example. And I'm going to update my share so you can see everything without a challenge. I will open up this table. And this is a very standardized output that we've kind of configured. So the standardized output comes out. And you're looking at, did I just extract employees here? Okay, that's funny. So you're essentially looking at all the values that should come out right over here. So let me just try that one more time. Go back. Extract. Tabular format. All right, so we just, for some reason, decided to extract only specific pieces, but essentially what you're looking at is that all of the pieces which are written here in terms of the value attribute on the right-hand side get extracted right there. Sorry, could you just go on mute, please? Anybody who's speaking at the time? Thank you. All right, so with this, I'll quickly go back to my presentation here. And all right. So with that, how do we start? So we basically have our AI trained modules. I don't know if you can see the bottom of the screen as well. I will just make it nice. Okay. So we got our pre-trained AI modular blocks. What that means is the semantic table, understanding all of that is trained already. You're looking at importing data, provide 100 examples, and you basically get the automated workflow towards the end. That's a very simple 3-step process. And we can build, from a start to end, an extraction for you within like a week or two's time. And there are a couple of questions that usually asked in terms of the data privacy. So we are a SaaS-based platform. This platform essentially sits on the cloud. And our AI gets deployed in that private cloud. So data essentially never leaves from that private cloud. So essentially looking at all the data that you upload, there's no need for it to come down to BotMinds, because the AI is essentially sitting with you in the cloud instance. And all the other pieces that you see here are integration, audit logs, team management, role-based. I can specify and say, okay, extraction is done before it gets before it goes ahead and touches my other system. I want a workflow to be added. I want somebody to do a first analysis, and then I want somebody to do an approval. And all of those pieces you can absolutely build in as part of the overall workflow. So with that, at the end, what you're looking at is you're looking at all of these pieces. You're looking at the cost saving up to 80%, operational efficiency, and 10x more capacity, because you could use this platform as a unified platform, completely headless, as well. So you can use it end to end there. And with that, I think that's the end of what I wanted to cover, within this 20-25 minutes. With this, I will bring it back to Sami. Sami, do we have any questions from the audience? And we can take probably 2 questions here.
Thanks, Vikas. We have a question from Maheshwari. Is there an OCR integrated, or we have any other technology to read information from images, that is JPEG file attached, embedded in the document?
Sure. Thanks, Maheshwari, for the question. Yes, I did not cover that. We do have an OCR, which is built in. And what we've done is we have kind of built an AI model on top of the OCR. So if you have a PDF document, whether it's native or non-native, which means an image, all of those extractions essentially happen natively within the platform. So you don't really have to, have any other OCR or any other thing done from your side. You can upload an image, and the image gets, the information gets extracted just the way you've seen with a normal PDF file. Any other questions, Sami?
No, this was the only question. And now we would start for a panel discussion.
Okay.
And with us, we have panel members, Gokul Ganapati, co-founder and CEO of BotMinds.ai.
Sami, just give me 1 second, please. So to all the attendees, thank you for the patience. We kind of did not offer that you could leave your questions within the chat box. So may I please request anybody who has any questions, please put them on the general chat. Empiric Media team will pick that up, and we will keep another 5-7 minutes at the end to be able to answer that question. You could ask questions about what I covered, and you could also ask the questions what we're going to cover, and you can direct it to a panel member there. Okay, back to you.
Yes, Vikas. We have with us Mohit Mehta, Director, S&P Global Market Intelligence, Nikhil Asopa, Country Head, Japan Korea of Wipro Limited, and we have Naveen Sharma, Associate Vice President, Senior Industry Principal, Infosys, and we have Krishnan Ramachandran, Senior Vice President, FNA and India CFO, Hinduja Global Solutions Limited, and we have Gokul Ganapati, co-founder and CEO of BotMinds Inc. So we'll start the panel discussion. Over to you, Vikas.
Thank you. May I request the panel members to turn the videos on so we can start the conversation. All right, I'm going to do a video gallery. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you all the panel members for your time today to be able to join us for this conversation. The first question that I would essentially ask, and I'll take this to Mohit to begin with. Mohit, what obstacles do you see based on what you've heard so far and based on what you've done as part of the S&P Global? What are the obstacles that you have seen, when it comes down to implementing an IPA or any kind of an automation solution? What challenges do organizations face?
Right. Thanks, Vikas. And I think before getting into just a brief about S&P, and S&P Global has been powering like markets of the future, and market intelligence is the financial services division of S&P. And data means nothing without insights, and I think that's where we collect, analyze, and interpret data from millions of hard-to-get sources, how we get to the granularities. Basically, we call what I think you also refer to, because that intelligent process automation as data transformation within an organization, because for us, data continues to be at the core and transformation makes it stronger. When we talk about the obstacles in implementation, I believe for an organization like S&P, the technical debt and the decades of historical data that we have, along with complex workflows which are embedded inside those pieces, makes it difficult to start. But it's more about how you move into those directions and you start getting into that space. I believe the next one is more on the lines of the change management, which we have to get it done, right? It's the subject matter expertise, whether our leaders are ready for that particular change management, and what's the value that the overall process automation or data transformation brings to the table. So I believe these are a couple of pieces. And I think because of the technical debt and the change management, the execution time is higher, which is definitely a big obstacle, because with the traditional and the technical debt, and you are transforming the operations at the same time, it continues to manage both the pieces parallelly. So I believe these are some of the obstacles that many organizations face, and I think we have tried to come across a long way when we started or on this particular journey. So it's an interesting case study, I would say, to put it how you presented your case studies.
Sure. Thanks, Mohit. I think that's a great point there. There are different journeys that most of the organizations have, and I think it depends upon what the starting point really is. So I'll take this question now to Naveen. Naveen, you've got significant experience when it comes down to OCR, RPA, IDP, and now IPA. So similar question what I asked to Mohit. What are the challenges that an organization should kind of be aware of when you're rolling out an OCR plus AI model? And what are the possible avenues that an organization could kind of look at to open up? Usual challenges, where do I start? And that's where process discovery tools that have just come about in about last year have come to a point. So in your point of view, I'm just summarizing what I just said. In your point of view, what are the challenges that an organization faces when it comes down to OCR, RPA, IPA, etc.?
Yeah, I think, Vikas, I would summarize the challenges that, and this is from experiences, that they can all be clubbed into three categories, and that is people, process, and technology. And starting in the reverse order, technology becomes the first challenge, because not every organization is ready to do this kind of a niche skill or niche technology project itself. If somebody is trying to build this kind of capability internally, you need to be first aware of the kind of complexities involved. You need to have the right set of people available. It's not something, a standard enterprise application development using .NET or Java. This is different, a little bit different game, right? And you don't have this kind of skill set available in plenty in the market. This is still, a niche skill area. So you need to be aware of, whether you want to go for an in-house solution or you need to go and buy this from market. Market also is evolving. You guys are one of the players. I'm sure there are a few more, but the kind of maturity that is there around it is what you need to keep in mind when you need to go for it. Second, from people perspective, and that's assuming that you have already won over the technology challenges, you have the solution. The change management within the organization is the second hurdle. Imagine you have a set of people who have been habitual of doing the things the way they have been doing for years. And you bring in something that was, here is a genie, that will work for you 10 times the speed, the way you do it, and probably more accurately, or without a fear of human oversight or fatigue related, losing things and all that. I mean, what's their reaction? Becomes all the more important when, for this thing to succeed, the amount of training that is needed for the particular tool that you're bringing in, the input has to come from that team. It's a tricky thing, right? You need them to help in building the solution more robust so that the solution actually can take over what they are doing today. Kind of scares them. So you need to make sure that people are excited about this solution and not scared. This is going to augment their capability to do something more, something better than what they are doing. That's the people angle. Process angle also, is going to basically change the whole dynamics of the way your operations around the process was designed. Because the timing of doing something, the cost involved in that is going to come down drastically. And you can basically, go back to the drawing board and see that, okay, we had so many people, we had such kind of timelines, we had such kind of turnaround times and reviews and all of that is going to change. So you need to basically redesign your process also with such a thing. There's a great power that comes to your hand. So these things are, I think, the key factors. If not handled, they become challenges. If handled well, they become really the showcase studies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you've the people process technology is the first slide. Usually when you start digital transformation, they put that heading there. So there's definitely, that is there. I'm going to go to Nikhil really quickly here. So Nikhil, Naveen talked about build versus buy. He didn't use the words, but essentially that was the point. Build versus buy. Do you want to build it? You buy it. In your view, how do you measure, from your view, when you look at a bottom line efficiency, you look at, from the customers who are looking at certain, success criteria, how do you look at significant benefits? How do you measure them? That, okay, if this is the output that is coming through, that's the success of my automation or a particular process.
So thanks, Vikas. Because I think one of the major criteria where people go for this IP or any other process automation technique, they think cost benefit is the only objective, and I don't say no to it, okay, because that's the most important one. But actually, there are many other benefits. So apart from process efficiency, which we build in, okay, there are other benefits as well. Okay, let me give you some examples. So any process automation which a customer will buy, okay, or any organization would basically implement, okay, they have to see it whether it is reducing their errors. Okay, you can understand, and I think you or somebody mentioned about the impact of these financial errors which happens, okay, what it costs, millions and billions of dollars, right? Okay, any kind of a process automation should ensure that, okay, the error reduction happens. Now, that is also true that one size doesn't fit all, and you will not be able to have a 100% zero error type of process, because as you have mentioned as a part of your platform as well, it will keep learning, and the AI will bring in, and you will keep learning and get the solutions more robust. Okay. But at the end of the day, it has to reduce the errors as much as possible. So that's another success factor apart from the efficiency and the cost, which we all know about. The third is the consistency. Okay, that the automation process has to be consistent. It should not basically have inconsistency in nature. Otherwise, what will happen is you will see some success in a particular process, but you will not see it in some other process. And hence, that consistency is very important. Okay. The next is you talk about the compliance part of it. Okay, the reliability of it, whether it is the process is reliable. Okay, whether I can use this process across. Okay, that is another one. And the last but most important is the stakeholder management. See, let's understand. Okay, the customer, and when I say stakeholders, means both internal and external stakeholders. The customer who has basically bought in your platform or your solution, okay, for automation or process automation. Okay, we have to make sure that particular problem of his gets resolved. Okay, you may have the best in class of the solution, but if it doesn't fit to that customer needs, okay, then it is not relevant to. Similarly, for internal stakeholders, for employees who use it, it should not be that complicated, but it becomes so difficult to use that particular process. Okay, so it should be friendly in learning, it should be ease of use, and the most important, as I said, it should directly impact the customer problems. Okay, if we are able to basically put up a scorecard on each of these parameters, okay, and then take it to the customer or the potential buyer, okay, then you will have a very good mechanism of how this particular process or any particular process can work.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Nikhil. Thank you very much for that. I think you've covered all of the pieces when it comes down to, the And the fact that, like, the fact you started with the fact that cost benefit is not the only one. You kind of have to look at substantial pieces as well. While working with Blue Prism, I kind of looked at certain scenarios where I kind of came aware of the fact that organizations, and Aditya covered this at the very beginning, basically keep a fund for non-compliance. Banks keep a fund, $2 million worth of fund for non-compliance. And that is a clear use case for, automation or AI automation. Instead of being ready to pay, you can actually invest part of that, and then you have that fund kind of available to a large extent. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go to Krishnan first, and then I'll come to Gokul, with a follow-up question there. So Krishnan, you look at it from a finance perspective. I'm just looking at it on basis of what Nikhil has just mentioned. What kind of industry-wide transformation initiatives can be taken? What is the right time from a CFO hat? From a CFO perspective, what are the right ways that you would recommend to say, okay, this is a good starting point, I can approve that, and this is kind of not so ready for transformation? How do you look at this request and this position where a process kind of needs to be taken through an automation journey? What's your evaluation recommendation there as part of that organization?
Thanks. So basically, in my opinion, I think we should have backed upon this journey much earlier. I think we have all been waiting for the right time and right opportunity and trying to explore a lot of things. I guess the pandemic has also sort of pushed us to take that leap forward, which probably could have been done a little earlier. But we were all trying to, it's not that artificial intelligence has just come in. It's been there for quite a while. The way blockchain is also doing the rounds, but we are still waiting, in terms of kickstarting somewhere to ensure that it then picks up its way. I'll break this into two parts. One is, the client facing, the customer facing, and the other is internal, to look at it more from a CFO perspective. If you look at the customer perspective, we are all catering to customer needs. And today, when you put in a solution, you understand the customer processes because you would like to be a valued partner to the customer. And therefore, you undertake a process transformation journey to ensure that you service your customers better. And in line with that, you also want to engage in a meaningful process transformation and then apply intelligent automation. What is important to note is that the clients are also moving up the value chain in the automation journey. So today, probably you're supporting some systems where the customer needs a lot of help on the manual space. But when they automate, when they transform their process, then the processes that you have put in currently will also have to undergo a change. So as they say, the change is a permanent thing. Similarly, process transformation is a continuous thing. It's here to stay. So we have to be quite conscious about the changes that are happening around. And this investment is a continuous investment. When you also undertake process transformation journey, it's quite important to bring experts, technology experts into the game much ahead so that you know that a process that you re-engineer or put in place is scalable in terms of automation, rather than realizing this part a little later. So I think as an organization, from an industry perspective, these are the key things, especially when you engage into a discussion with your customers and try to transform your back office processes. Now, coming back to the CFO hat and doing your internal thing, I think gone are the days when you look at finance in isolation. It's all an integrated approach. Every department, the steps that they take, the process they put has an impact on the finance organization. And as you would be aware, the auditors also certify internal controls on financial reporting. And these internal controls not only govern the finance processes, but also all the departments, all the processes across the organization, including all the support functions. So it's quite important that you create a strategic team within the organization to understand the organization needs and also be at a common common platform from an understanding perspective. Once you have this core team, which constantly looks at the ripple effects of an action or a decision being implemented by one department that it has on the other department, and also the whole thing that will sort of bring out as an end result, and then you come up with a strategy and then decide which process stands in priority and prioritize your entire process and then undertake the transformation journey. I think we also made a very important point that off-the-shelf products should be leveraged rather than trying to do things internally, because you may not have sustainable expertise on which you can rely from a long term. And that's where organization like that of yours come into play to help customers in deciding what is the right size, what is the right focus, how do we align, and then do a transformation that can be a long-term from an automation perspective. So I think the CFO has to now, or the CFO organization has to play a 360-degree to ensure that the transformation and automation are all hand in hand. And I think we are already there. We can't wait. If there is any organization that is still waiting, I guess they are well behind. So I would encourage all the organizations to sort of rather go ahead with whatever their initiatives are, but very clearly automation is clearly a priority.
Thank you, Krishnan. You brought in very good points, and I think we've all kind of seen multiple memes which say which is your biggest digital transformation, initiator, and COVID-19 sits right there at the top, amongst all the others. So yeah, very good point there. And I think you bring in a good couple of things here that I've kind of picked up. Is there's a build versus buy question. I'm coming to you, Gokul, with that question now. And also you talked about the fact that whether you should look at components which are individual components or you should look at a unified component. And after Gokul, Aditya, I'll come to you with a question that Krishnan put out, that there have to be teams that have to be kind of made internally. So you referred to Tom very early on, so we'll talk about that. But to Gokul, your question to you is, how do you see variety of platforms put together versus a unified platform, build versus buy? And I think Mohit, you would also have some points there. So I'll allow Gokul to respond on that first. And after Aditya, Mohit, I'll come back to you on that. Gokul.
Thanks, Vikas. Thanks. So that's the right question to ask, after we heard from a CFO perspective. So build versus buy, and ROI is the key term, right? So how quickly I can see the return on investment, and also how bigger a return on investment I can expect. So that's what I like to emphasize, and that's what I'm forced to engage in a discussion with my customers again and again. So that's closely tied to the unified nature of the solution or platform you need. Now, for example, automation, by nature, as a financial services back office, you have many processes. In one process you have to deal with earning call transcript. In another process you have to deal with credit agreement. In another process you have to deal with an email content, and investment presentation. So it's different document types, different sources, and you may have in enterprise multiple teams working on it. And if you want to automate each and every process as a piecemeal, then it is huge investment both on time as well as cost, right? That's where you need a unified platform and a single platform which can help you in creating solutions and in short time. And then platform is okay, but what's the purpose if you have a platform that needs many months to give you the solution? So you can use platform like BotPoints that comes with a pre-trained model, a lot of components readily available, using which you can create solutions. That's the build versus buy answer to the build business buy question. And also, I like to add a point because lot of talk about the change management, people, and for that also I like to pick one word from Mr. Krishnan there, going up the value chain, right? It's important not only from organization standpoint and also from the subject matter experts standpoint. If you see financial services back office, by its nature, it's SME heavy, document heavy, or information intensive, and it's a research. I mean, you are basically dealing with research analyst, and if in case if a research analyst is doing a data entry, that's huge loss. Resource capital. Capital loss, and also they should not spend time in searching for the information, because the searching for information is a non-standard process. It's a huge subjective process. Again and again, when I talk to my customers, they'll say it's a subjective. If you deep dive, the subjective nature or the non-standard nature comes in searching for the information. Any research analyst, you give the data, they will take a right decision, is good or bad. The problem comes in this or that. No, that's where AI can help. No, in a long, as Vikas showcased, in a 22-page call transcript, we can give you, these are the 2-3 instances where change in operations mentioned. But the research analyst now can do the quick decision. Okay, this is this will be the impact on the revenue for the company in the next quarter. They can take a decision. That's very well standardized. They have they have the clarity. But if you allow, if you ask them to go and search for the information in a document or just by giving the source, that's where subjectivity or non-standard nature comes into picture. So those are the areas AI can help, bot points can help, and that's a good way to push our research analysts to to the higher value plane, and that also translates the value to our customers as well.
Awesome, thanks, Google. Aditya, coming to you with the point that Christian mentioned and Gokul also highlighted there. There needs to be, and I think Naveen also mentioned that very early on, there needs to be specific team to either do change management or to basically implement RPA. And most of the RPA vendors basically have that as a target operating model. Some call it as a robotic operating model. What's the, Tom, in your view, from a change management perspective, any organization that is heading towards an AI implementation, what does it look like? What could it look like? Your recommendation there, please.
Yeah. So when I was working with Accenture, we were doing this automation, for a large multinational company and stuff like that. So one of the big things we saw, and I had mentioned this earlier, was that they had disparate systems, right? The systems are different. The way they were working was very, very different, right? And when we wanted to implement this automation, we did not find significant benefits because of the various systems. It was not unified, and there was various systems, right? So one of the things we said that if you want to really have the bang for the buck, one of the critical things you need to first do is standardize your systems, right? You standardize the system across what you do in Europe, what you do in APAC, what you do in Americas. First, you need to standardize those systems, and then you put the automation layer on top of it, and then you put the AI layer on. And that's where you see the maximum benefit, right? We could see a benefit of almost 80-90%. So I think that's key. The other thing is that if you have disparate systems and not unified systems, how the data flows, how do you analyze the data, and those kind of things also takes a big impact, because you need to have different data extracting machines. You need to have different way you analyze the data when you have different systems, right? So it's very important to have a unified system. So your time to serve the customer, the cost to serve the customer, and actually the quality of service you provide is significantly better. Also, and also the data you get is a standard data format, right? In terms of you don't have to go to various systems to gather data. It's just there, and you analyze the data, and boom, you can make an impact. From a customer standpoint. The other thing is that once you do an RPA, right? You need to change the TOM, which is the model. Pre and post needs to be different, where you see the real value where automation is acting, right? So where is the human interaction or touch, if any, during this whole process? Is it going to be the beginning or the end where there's a QC and stuff like that? And if there's multiple touch points, right? I mean, there might not be the benefit which you want to realize, from an automation standpoint. So you need to have a clear, strategy in terms of what's the TOM going to be post that. And a lot of companies struggle with this, right? And there's an important aspect of how do you want to do your target operating model eventually, right, to get the maximum benefit impact on that. So that's my 2 bits on this.
Right. Thanks, Aditya. Thanks for that. I think importance of TOM, importance of creating a specific team. And there's a misconception within the, I wouldn't say industry, but let me just say that for lack of a better word, is that just buying a technology actually gets you results, which is never a case. You need to get the technology, you need to have the right people. And Christian pointed out that you better have people who know what to do about it rather than trying to do internally by yourself. So that's a recommendation. And Mohit, I'm coming to you with this question now. So you're spearheaded automation for many processes. You see multiple different types of documents, sources, inputs coming through. Everybody, Christian, Aditya, Gokul, Naveen also pointed that out. Nikhil also mentioned that multiple systems could be a challenge. So in the IP journey that you have seen so far, how do you see a unified platform playing against multiple combination of system, either whether they are homegrown or put together? You are basically in the middle of that, all of those pieces. So what's your recommendation for the audience here?
Right. No, I think that's an interesting place to be in sometimes. But so how we are looking at some of these aspects in our organization is on the lines that make each of the service as a microservice. And then the bigger question comes in that what do you want to build or what do you want to buy? And like when I started the earlier discussion, the technical debt and the complex workflow along with the tons of historical data, our first preference usually comes towards building a model. But with the limited technical resources, skill sets, sometimes that sails through, sometimes it has to move towards a buy model also. So I'll give you an example on that. When we look for a solution, we do not look for a solution only for then our organization. We look at it in a more holistic point of view. So taking an example, like Kensho is this center of innovation for, it's a company that S&P acquired a couple of years ago. And now we had the similar problem of call transcribing, right? Like what you also talked about as a case study. Now we had the similar situation on where to move forward towards, and we reached our internal stakeholders. Now we have created a product which is Kensho Scribe, which does exactly the same thing on the call transcript. So it does a lot of that work, and that's a good example of a build model. Whereas I cannot marry my each of the microservice to only one technology because divorces are difficult, right? Like you have to either cut those knots, and that's where the real challenges are. So that's where we are progressing in the lines of build each microservice, have a solution for those microservices where the data can sit in the DMSs and it talks directly. So that unified part, which Aditya mentioned, I think that is where the data sits, and that data is curated. But do I need only one unified platform? I think we burnt our hands, and we are definitely moving in a direction that microservices are much stronger, because then you are not marrying to one piece for your entire organization, and you have multiple facets that you can leverage value from. So that's what my take would be that on this particular piece, Vikas.
Got it. I think thanks for that. Gokul kind of and I kind of mentioned from a very bottom-mind's perspective, but thanks for your perspective, because that's kind of important to understand what things looks like when you're looking at evaluation. So Naveen, I'm going to come to you with that. So from the unified platform itself, there are, of course, a lot of verticals, horizontals, Infosys broken down. Every single organization is managed that way. Mohit says that, and that's true. And I want your reaction on that. Is that one platform, and of course, it's a putting all your eggs in one basket scenario. If you have just one platform doing everything, you basically are not thinking straight to a large extent. Although I am proposing that you have one platform, but at the same time, criticality of having a platform that can do more than just one thing, like finance. Then you having to invest in multiple platforms because what you bought kind of only could do this and could not do something else. So the value that a horizontal platform brings in, like ours, what's your view based on what you've seen? And we're kind of 10 minutes into the closure, so I'm going to bring this question to everybody. Just 30-second quick reaction, starting with you, Naveen, on the importance of a platform that is kind of more horizontal in nature. What's your view quickly on that?
I think absolutely this makes sense. There's two part always to any platform: the technology part and the domain expertise that it brings in. So while in an evolving stage, this is more technology heavy, but obviously as the platform matures, it is going to build up its own repository of important information, and it's AI. It's like a kid that is learning. As things mature, as things evolve, you're going to have a library of things or library of models which are process specific. So you may probably start with finance related use cases, and with every learning, your platform is going to become richer, and what applies for finance today can grow and be used as basis for something in legal, can also be used in case of HR, maybe something related to compliance. And there's no end to it. So while it may start with something which is very process centric, may sound like a niche or a vertical thing, but I think it has its natural evolution in the form of a horizontal service. That's definitely a future. It can't be contained in one, because at the end of the day, it's a people's game, right? You are actually through the solution replacing or rather augmenting people's skill. Domain part is one angle to it, but at the end of the day, everybody uses technology for augmenting their current capability, right? So and analytics, these are general skills, like intelligent interpretation of what is written. It's a general skill. It equally applies for somebody coming in either from a finance domain, coming in from legal, coming in from HR, coming in from various domains. So I think horizontal is the way that it will evolve, even if it may start with a particular domain.
Got it. Thanks for that point of view. Nikhil, I'm going to come to you with the same question. The question is, your experience, of course, is, running operations, and you're looking at multiple geographies. Your quick reaction on horizontal platform versus individual pieces of component, that are specialized to a vertical.
Oh, because it is something which the organization who's planning to buy and who wants to implement this platform has to decide. Okay, because it cannot be one answer. Okay, there may be an organization where, for example, an organization may have the biggest requirement or the biggest challenges they are facing on the finance side, and they may go to a platform which is heavier on the finance side and may ignore the other part of the organization. Okay. At the same time, if they say, no, we would like to have a very consistent across all the different departments of my organization, and they may go with the horizontal one. So it's a trade-off which organizations have to do it, and purely depends on what their pain point is. As I was mentioning in my initial remark as well, okay, unless and until a platform marries to the stakeholders' pain point, okay, the platform is not the right choice of a platform. It may be the best platform in the world, okay, but it may not be the best for that particular organization. So the organization has to decide where I bleed the most, where I have the biggest pain point, and based on that, they have to decide. So that would be my 2 cents on it.
Thanks, Nikhil. And I'm looking at different point of views here so the audience can get all the flavors. So Krishnan, I'm coming to you with the same question. In your view, how do you look at a unified platform versus a combination of a couple of platforms?
So in my opinion, both coexist. So the way I would look at it is, see, you have horizontal platforms to cater to the specific requirement, but any of these platform to function from an organization standpoint has to have a common thread. So let me give you an example. If you look at the finance domain, today you want to create, let's say, an expense management system, right? Or you want to look at procurement from, creating a procurement management system. But you will agree that all of this needs an approval hierarchy. And this approval hierarchy has to move from your human resource management system, an HRMS, because that is where the employee data resides in the employee hierarchy, the approval hierarchy. And that's a continuous thing. I mean, in a company like that of ours, where we have close to 37,500 employees across globe, and in India, we have close to about 13,500 employees with an a heavy attrition rate. The data keeps changing, and these moving parts have to sink in, right? So what we have done, for example, is to build one data source. So what happens is you build one source which will be a feeder as well as a taker. And then the data is constantly updated with the latest changes. So I think a horizontal platform is definitely needed, because you need that to be the specialization in that particular domain. But you also need all that information. And if you really need to scale up, you could decide how to automate in a unified platform and send it back to the respective horizontal platform. So in my view, both are important, but the intelligence lies in how easily you integrate all of this together and then build in a layer which can really help in augmenting the performance of all of these independent systems, along with reaping the benefits of a unified system.
Absolutely. Thank you, Krishan. Gokul, at last, coming to you on that, your comments and all the viewpoints that you've heard. Anything from your side that you want to add?
It's interesting viewpoints all over the spectrum. That's the same kind of views I'm also hearing in the market when I'm going talking to the people. More importantly, what I want to convey here is, coming back to the financial services itself, financial services back office. Creating a model that understands transcripts, and also creating another model that understands, let's say, 10K filings. And at the same time, there's another team working on, let's say, monitoring press releases. I have to monitor, let's say, a fund house, all their investments. Okay, so you have different teams, different documents, and yes, you can go for a solution that does great work on 10K abstracting 10K filings. Yes, but at the same time, if you are given a choice, here is a horizontal platform. You can create that vertical, focused solutions to the same level of accuracy or even better accuracy, and that too in days or weeks. And that's, I think, no-brainer decision, and that's what we are pushing to our customers. Maybe I'm so aggressive here, because the kind of response I'm now hearing from our early adopters is something like, okay, there is one horizontal platform, train our subject matter experts, they can create the solution in the way, in the shape, in the form they want, and then that too in days to weeks, and matches the accuracies and efficiencies the other single use case solution provides. And that's that's what I will suggest, and I will recommend to the audience here. Try a horizontal platform, and you will see the way. Thank you.
Perfect pitch, Gokul. Thank you for that. I'm just going to go on to the chat window and pick up a couple of questions there. So we had Maheshwar's question, so that is addressed. Varzad Wadia, you had a question. Are you still here? Would you like to ask the question in person? You can turn on your audio and speak about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to know regarding the language capabilities. I thought you touched upon that, and we didn't discuss on that. So, what about the language capabilities in terms of extraction? Is it only English, or do you have other languages as well?
Sure. Thanks, Varzad, for the question. At the moment, we have only English. We have kind of loaded up the semantic understanding of the particular language. But picking up a new language, we are working with a couple of our other clients as well. That is a matter of about 3 to 4 weeks. Gokul, do you want to add something technically there in terms of languages?
Yeah, sure. So the speed of execution, right? How quickly you can see the results is because of the pre-trained models, the core models we have, and it's trained heavily with the English language documents and English language documents, and we can transfer a few of the learnings and abstract understanding from one language to other, but that needs few weeks. Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Raghu.
Thank you.
Lalit, you had a question. Are you still here? Would you like to ask your question? Okay. So Lalit's question was, what all OCRs are available? Google, Microsoft, or any other vendor. So we use Google Tesseract as the inbuilt OCR, but we are absolutely flexible. Our Google OCR does the initial part, then we have AI models built on top of that to do additional things that we'd like to do. But at the same time, if an organization is looking at, Abby or something else, ours is a modular approach. We can, of course, interact with that and, put Abby instead of Google and, take it forward from that point onwards.
Because I'd like to add a point here. Sorry,
Yeah, please.
Where we assume people understand Google, Tesseract, even though it's from Google, it's open source. We are not using any, Google Vision OCR and all. It's a open source Tesseract as a foundational block for our own OCR. So that's key difference.
Thanks, Google. Thanks for that. Jaya Prakash, are you still here? Would you like to ask your question? Okay, I'll take that up for you. How do you justify legal and regulatory compliance? This is something that I had covered as part of our enterprise-ready platform. So we are a SaaS-based platform. Unlike any other AI SaaS-based platform where you have initial capture and then you have a mothership AI sitting somewhere with the product, with the company, where all the decisions essentially get done. For us, the AI that we have developed literally sits in your platform. So a document kind of never leaves your private cloud. So everything literally sits there. And that cloud is within the jurisdiction, geography, wherever you have that deployed. So the cloud sits there. So from a compliance and regulatory perspective, it has kind of never left your premises anyway. We at BotMinds never need to see your data, even for training or for actual execution. All of that can be done directly by you on a point-and-click training. All right. So Lalit had one more question here. Do we have any metrics to measure the efficiency of an ROI of having AI bot? So if I translate that, the question really is: is there a way in which we can measure the efficiency of ROI for that? I think there are a couple of points. Nikhil mentioned that, Naveen mentioned, almost everybody mentioned that, is that the cost basically is not your main ROI. You're looking at accuracy as the point that is coming through. Of course, there are information from the platform, reports which are available from the platform in terms of the time that is spent. Something that I haven't spoken about is the transparent AI. And that's where a lot of conversation about the bias exists on what AI is trained on. So transparent AI from BotMinds essentially allows you to see why is it giving the accurate results of 90%, whereas the other attribute is at still 65, 70%. So you can literally see on what basis, how many examples did it pick up, how many examples need to be given so that you can push up the accuracy level there. So that's the piece that we look at. Joydeep has asked a question here. When you say build versus buy, my understanding is, sorry, Joydeep, do you want to ask your question? Are you still here?
If I can read out for Joydeep, he's talking about why has it taken so long for AI technology to gain traction?
Yeah.
Maybe I can take that question if you allow, Vikas. So more specifically, I'll answer from the NLP angle, right? Because we call the 2020 is a year of NLP, where 2019 or 2018 is a year of computer vision, all those stuff. So a lot of breakthroughs, research literally happening in the last 1 year or 6 months. Whatever research breakthroughs achieved in 2019, double the triple happened in 2020, and now it's happening even much faster clip. So the kind of use cases solved by the AI is getting matured. It's getting closer to the real world, and that's the reason for the recent traction. And it's not so long. Okay, when compared to the journey it takes computer science to the computer apps, the data science to data apps, it took less time. So it's not too long, but yes, I understand the
Thanks. And I think there is a lot of, if I could just add there, there's a lot of pieces that happened when we did big data, 10 years, 15 years ago, where we're just collecting all sort of data. And AI basically thrives on data. Right now, what we have is we've got social media, we've got text, we got video, we got audio, all of these pieces are coming through, which 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago was a study on its own in terms of being able to generate that data. So just to add on Gokul's point, that's basically what has changed. And last year, like everybody said, COVID-19, thanks to that, a lot of transformation kind of happened, there. With that, if there are no more questions, we have 5 minutes over. I would like to thank all the panel members for their time today, for their contribution, for answering the questions, and being able to share your experience with us at BotMinds and with everybody who was kind of joined here. And also a big thank you to all the participants who joined and stayed on for another 5-6 minutes. Thank you very much and wish you a good weekend.